Good Tuesday morning. It's April 1st, April Fool's Day. I won't be fooling around too much with you here. We've got so much great stuff to cover here from the weather desk. It's today's top weather headlines. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. I work here at 13 News Now, serving southeastern Virginia, northeast North Carolina, and pretty much thanks to the internet and our extensive reach, we serve the entire country and the entire world, for that matter, with all kinds of weather stories and weather information. Now, we're going to run through what our topics we're going to tackle today, what these main topics are. The first one, we're going to cover the storm damage from this massive storm that worked across the central and eastern U.S. We've got storm damage and reports, the very latest on that. We're also going to take you back over to Myanmar and also Bangkok to update you on the earthquake situation over there. Again, last week's earthquake, still just tremendous amount of damage from that, and we're getting more and more information out from that damaged area. We also have rocket launches to talk about and to show you some great video. One was very successful, thank goodness. The other one, not so much, but we'll show you why folks aren't as concerned with that, but the video is really something to check out, and we'll have that coming up for you in just a moment. Pollen update, also where we stand right now, how it compares to last year, and what's up with pollen bombs. My colleague Taylor Stephenson is going to join me in a little bit, and we're going to talk about pollen bombs, what they are, when you should look for them, and what they mean. So a lot to talk about there. But before we get into that, I want to take us from the United States all the way up to Iceland, and specifically the southwest part of Iceland. The Icelandic Meteorological Office says a volcano is erupting in the southwest part of the country. That area, again, this just coming in within the last hour or so. We have a live look at the action. Again, this just reported within the last hour. Really cool to see this. This is right next to the town, Grindavik, where about 40 homes have been evacuated. Now, the famous Blue Lagoon geothermal spa was also evacuated earlier today. And this is not too far from an area that had an eruption that happened back in 2021. That volcano was dormant for 800 years. So we had this other volcano go ahead and erupt in 2021. There was more activity there in 2022 and 2024. So this area appears to be really heating up. This time around, the magma started flowing from around the same time as an intense earthquake storm. And the Icelandic Met Office says the fissure in the earth is now about 500 meters long, and it is still growing. So this is where that fissure is located on the map. And again, we'll be watching that, but we thought that was interesting, so we wanted to show you that before we get into our other topics. We'll come back stateside and take a look at those storm reports. And again, this map, we can take it full. This is where we stand, showing the more recent reports, but I want to take you back, and I can show you the loop here over the last 24 hours. And you can see how many storm reports there were from yesterday, 24 hours ago, back across the Great Lakes region, how that storm system worked eastward yesterday and came into the eastern U.S. and the southeast. There were tornado warnings. We had hailstorms, and we had a lot of wind damage out there as well with this. As we take a look at some of the severe weather impacts across the country, we now know at least 5 people have been killed from that line of storms that moved through yesterday and overnight. Hundreds of thousands of people were left without power. Michigan was under a state of emergency after the ice storm wiped out electricity. Now, here's video from a home security camera in Jackson, Michigan. The camera caught a roof being ripped off a mobile home by strong winds over the weekend. Very incredible to see that. Freezing rain and extreme winds toppled trees and power lines in Wisconsin and Indiana. Entire buildings were ripped up, and we also had collapsed buildings, churches, schools, fire halls that had power turned out. And really, these warming centers and shelters, rural communities, they all came together to work on cleaning up in the storm's aftermath. So just a tremendous amount of impact. All right, as we take a look again, I do want to mention some of the local storm reports, and it was interesting. This line that came through doing all of that damage back in the central part of the country and up around the Great Lakes region, by the time that line came through here, we really saw it kind of fragmenting around Hampton Roads. So there were reports of tree damage down to the south and off to the north a little bit as well. Up around Sparta, there were multiple trees downed. Some of the roads there kind of blocked. They required some cleanup. And out around Emporia, again, it was power lines that were dropped down from the strong winds. But no reports of damage specifically to Hampton Roads. We actually came through in pretty good shape here. So that was certainly a relief last night as we had late night coverage with those storms. But again, they did weaken. Now, I do want to take you back overseas, and we said we'd talk some more about the earthquake, and here you go as we take a look at Myanmar and also Bangkok, Thailand. The death toll in Southeast Asia has passed 2,000 now, and this is a live look in Bangkok, Thailand, where crews are searching through rubble after a 7.7 magnitude earthquake rocked that region last Friday. This morning, we're learning about some of the victims of that deadly earthquake. Among the dead, Buddhist monks, preschool children, and hundreds of Muslims praying at mosques for Ramadan. The region, one of the world's most challenging places for humanitarian organizations to operate because of civil war. It's been really, really tough there. All right, we're going to come back to the United States, and I want to specifically take you in to Cape Canaveral because we do have some exciting things happening in the world of space travel. All right, NASA astronauts who spent nearly 300 days in space are now telling for the first time what it was really like to finally return home. And it comes after another historic mission gets underway from the Kennedy Space Center. This one with civilian astronauts on board. ABC's Andrew Dimbert has the details.
And liftoff. Overnight, a historic SpaceX mission blasting off from the Kennedy Space Center. The 4 civilian astronauts on board are set to become the first humans to orbit the Earth's north and south poles. Typically, orbits fly roughly parallel to the equator. The crew will also become the first to cultivate mushrooms in space. The company behind the experiment says mushrooms could be used as a sustainable food source for long-duration missions in the future to places like the Moon, Mars, and beyond. The mission, expected to take 3 to 5 days.
I had a good grilled cheese sandwich when I got home.
Meanwhile, Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, the astronauts who famously went into space for 8 days and ended up staying for 9 months, spoke to reporters for the first time since returning home.
I wanted to hug my husband and hug my dogs, and I'll say that in that order. But maybe not. No, I'm just joking.
Both marveling at the resilience of the human body.
Who would even imagine that you come back from 10 months in space, roughly 10 months, and within a week you run 2 miles at an 8-minute pace? I mean, that's not even conceivable that the body could handle that.
I actually went out and ran 3 miles yesterday, so I will give myself a little pat on the back.
Their epically long space adventure ensued after their original ride home from the space station. The Boeing Starliner had technical problems. Things got political when Elon Musk said his company, SpaceX, offered to bring the 2 home last year, but claimed the offer was declined by the Biden administration. The astronauts, speaking with ABC's Gio Benitez, distanced themselves from that controversy.
President Trump and Mr. Musk, I have no reason to doubt what they say. They've earned my trust. I don't doubt anything they say, but I can't make that comment. I can't say we were abandoned. We didn't feel that way.
Andrew Dimbert, ABC News, New York.
All right, so we had the successful SpaceX launch yesterday. Good to know, astronauts on board. Now we're going to take you from Cape Canaveral up to Norway, and I want to show you some pretty incredible video. This is a German aerospace startup company called ISAR. It had an initial test launch in Norway over the weekend. Now you take a look. This was an unmanned flight, so nobody on board, and the company called it a first attempt at an orbital flight. They want to join the market for commercial space missions, but they still have a long way to go. Take a look at this. The rocket going up, wobbling, turning around, and here it comes back down until it eventually crashes down and explodes. Wow, something to see there. ISAR Aerospace said it was prepared for a failed launch, and the test still gave them extensive data to learn from. Again, I'll stress, no one was on board, and the flight was not carrying a payload of any satellites or experimental equipment. So that was certainly something to see, something that you do not see very often. So really spectacular video, but again, nobody on that one. The SpaceX launch with astronauts, it was a great success. All right, we're going to talk allergies here, and let's start off with the allergy report. First of all, for Hampton Roads, tree pollen is moderate. So what we have, again, maple, juniper, birch, some of the trees that have been producing pollen now for well over a week or so. It's been going on, but the level's a little bit lower. We had the rain. Again, this is something that, we'll take a break when we get it. I can tell you the forecast for pollen is for it to go right back up, and we will see high levels over the coming days. With the rain overnight, you may have noticed the yellow rivers of pollen in southeast Virginia and northwest North Carolina. Allergy season is here in full force, and some people are wondering if this year is already worse than last. Megan Bragg from our sister station in Charlotte verifies if that's true.
It's allergy season, and many people claim they're grabbing more tissues than last year because of all the pollen piling up. So is this season worse? Let's verify.
Our sources, WCNC Charlotte meteorologist Craig Moeller, the National Weather Service, and the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America. You've seen it on your car, on your outdoor furniture, and more, a thick layer of pollen. But is this the stuff that's making you sneeze and wheeze?
Whatever this yellow stuff that you see on your car, on picnic tables all over the place, that's not what actually makes you sneeze. It's these microscopic, tiny little bits that get into your nasal passages.
According to the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, February to April is the peak time for tree allergies. The yellow stuff you see form outside on surfaces is pine pollen, which is not typically the cause of allergy symptoms.
So this, what you physically see, isn't actually leading to a worse allergy season. It's actually what we can't see.
According to the National Weather Service, last March we had 11 days of significant rain. This year we have seen 5.
If you talk about overall the intensity, it's the same. But whenever you have a rain event, that's a way to kick the pollen back down. So even though the peak is the same, this season technically has lasted a little bit longer because we haven't had that rain to at least reset us for a day or two.
So while the pollen count is pretty much the same as last year, it's the lack of relief from the rain that has us grabbing those tissues more. With your Verify, I'm Megan Bragg.
All right, and we do see some of those yellow deposits, some of that stuff that looks kind of nasty. But again, as they were just mentioning in that story, it's the stuff we can't see that gets us. This is Taylor Stephenson.
Hi.
She, too, a meteorologist. You join us here when you can on the weather desk. And Taylor, we're going to talk about the pollen levels. I mentioned moderate today, but expected to go higher for the next few days.
Right, and that's because those drier conditions are really starting to mix in, and so we're gonna see a lot of that really starting to pick up as the rain settles away from our area.
The rain is pulled out. We're in for a few dry days, so pollen going back up. But Taylor, you were digging into something that I thought was really interesting.
Right.
Let's talk about a pollen bomb. I was going to say pollen, but we'll say a pollen bomb.
Right.
What is this? What did you find out about it? What can you tell?
Okay, so the pollen bomb is when usually you have multiple trees that are releasing the pollen all around the same time, and it typically occurs during the early spring because we're transitioning over from the really cold winter days to those days in early spring where it's warmer. The warm, dry, windy conditions really help to really push that pollen, and they spread really easily on those days. That's why on rainy days like we had for last night, this morning, we have lower pollen counts. So that usually occurs during early spring. Now, remember those little yellow pollen things we're talking about just in that package? We're talking about the pollen. You can probably kind of see those on windy days where it can look like a pollen cloud sometimes. So.
All right, interesting. Yeah. I can tell you again, with the warmer weather, a lot of the trees start to open up and you get the dry conditions and it gets everything going. But I thought that was interesting. Trees releasing pollen around the same time, and it literally seems like it bombs out, and you may really suffer the allergies. I know a lot of us have been. So.
Right.
All right, well, interesting stuff there. Now, Taylor, you know, we're in the middle of tree pollen season right now. That's going to run through April. By May, it starts to taper off. Our next thing that we're going to be concerned with, the grass pollen, that's going to build here through the summer months.
Yeah, it will be. So there's obviously different peaks in different times. So you may be okay. I think most of us are not, but you may be okay during tree pollen season.
It through this, yeah.
But you'll still be seeing grass pollen. Then you'll start to see mold pollen later on.
Yeah, the mold pollen. You can see the mold season can start here. We've had a few days where it's been, you know, kind of minor. It hasn't been too bad yet. But as we get later in the season, we get those higher mold levels.
Right.
And then the weed pollen comes even later. And that's where we look into the late summer and then early fall.
Yep. So just making sure that you guys know these different peaks, because you may be asking, okay, usually spring is a time where we see the most pollen, but it really depends on the type of plant we're talking about.
Yeah. So some interesting pollen information for you. And again, we will keep you updated here at 13 News Now throughout the entire, you know, allergy season. And we're really just getting into it. Tree pollen, we're right at the peak.
Yep.
And it will be bad for the next week or so. But as soon as that's done, we'll go to grass and then mold and then weeds. Enjoy it, right? That's sarcasm. All right. Well, let's take a look at what's going on next. And I do want to get into the forecast so we can take a look at this with our satellite and radar images. Let's get into what's on the horizon with the European model. We had our storms come through the showers offshore. Again, no damage from this, as I just showed you with the storm reports here locally. But now that that's through, our pollen levels have been knocked down a little bit. What's next? Well, another storm system is going to bring more rain back across the central U.S., some mix and snow off to the north. For us here, high pressure will take over, and that's going to keep this rain kind of at bay a little bit. Again, with high pressure pretty firmly entrenched, we have the Bermuda High down there just to the south. That's going to kind of stall out a frontal boundary here through Thursday and Friday. It's also going to provide a southwest wind that is going to drive our temperatures up. So we are looking at warmer conditions as we go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We're talking highs lower to mid-80s up through the mid-Atlantic, certainly warm through the southeast. And notice this persistent rain hanging in back across the Midwest. You can see from the northern part of the Ohio River Valley down through the lower Mississippi Valley, the northeast U.S. also dealing with the rain, while the southeast will be dry and warm. Some more snow potentially down through the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas, so some late season snow kind of working a little farther south out to the west. That's through Saturday at 6 o'clock. Now, as we take a look ahead to Sunday, we're still largely dry across the area. I will tell you, some of the other models, including the GFS, kind of bring some showers a little bit closer later Sunday. But it looks like most of Sunday is going to be okay. I think late Sunday and certainly into Monday, that's when we're going to see our next good chances for rain up and down the mid-Atlantic region and down through the southeast U.S. as that high pressure finally breaks down and this frontal boundary can push to the east and through our area. That's also going to drop our temperatures significantly as we get into the middle of next week. So I mentioned today, well, we'll talk about today, temperatures close to 60, but it gets a lot warmer over the coming days. And then with that rain and that front coming through Monday, by Monday evening, that rain moves out and temperatures drop significantly again into the middle of next week. So there you go, 60 today, 64 tomorrow. This is for Norfolk, again, right here in the mid-Atlantic. We get our warm run of days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all in the lower 80s, low to mid-80s inland. And then Sunday night into Monday, we get the cold front coming through. We drop back. We drop a good 16 degrees or so from Sunday to Monday, and it gets even cooler, upper 50s for Tuesday and Wednesday. Temperatures do recover a little bit by next Thursday, back up to 65. But I will tell you, the 8 to 14 day outlook has cooler than normal temperatures for the eastern part of the country. Certainly the eastern third of the country will be below average. So going through, say, this time period through the middle of April, the next 7 days out or so, 6 days out, you see temperatures expected to be a little bit below normal when you average everything out. Now, what is normal? 65 for Hampton Roads. Yesterday, we were up to 84, pretty close to the record. We did pick up 0.08 of an inch. That was before midnight, and we picked up some additional rain. I think we wound up just over 0.2 of an inch total. So for the year, we're still about 0.75 of an inch or so below average. and we are abnormally dry across Southside Hampton roads, and there's moderate drought down around the Albemarle Sound. Out on the water today, we still have small craft advisories up for the bay and for the ocean. You can see again those flags up, seas running 4 to 6 feet, and the waves 3 to 4 feet on the bay. Things will relax later on as the winds are expected to go from 25 knots to 15 knots later this afternoon. We could still see some higher gusts though through midday on the water. Highs today, again, close to 60. Now, it was warmer than that earlier this morning, so when we look back on the almanac tomorrow, it's going to show temperatures today in the mid to upper 60s. But afternoon temperatures are going to stay in the upper 50s to near 60 near the coast. Inland areas more like low to mid 60s. We'll see more sunshine. It's going to be pleasant. Still breezy near the water for the eastern shore around Matthews here at the Middle Peninsula. Winds have been gusting around 25 to even 30 miles per hour. Off to the west, temperatures low 60s. Williamsburg looking good with clearing skies. Plenty of sunshine. Eventually down to the south, mid 60s for most of northeast North Carolina. Low to mid 60s at the Outer Banks. Tonight's low down around 45. That's seasonable. That's about where we should be this time of year. Mainly clear. It'll be a little milder right at the coast, a little cooler inland. And then tomorrow, temperatures should get back up around 64. So mostly sunny. Temperatures pretty close to average, a degree or so below average. East winds 5 to 15 miles per hour. Let's take a look at the 7-day forecast, and things are looking pretty good for us as we go into Thursday and Friday. A few more clouds, but really nice. And if you like the warm weather, you're loving it. Little taste of early summer with temperatures up into the 80s. By Saturday, I'll mention a 10% chance of a sprinkle. Sunday, we'll say a 30% chance. The Euro holds that rain back a little bit, so it's possible the rain may not arrive until Sunday evening. But some of the other models do bring it in a little earlier, and we've got plenty of time to watch it. You're still talking 5-6 days out. As we get into Monday, I expect rain there. At this point, doesn't look like a big severe issue at this moment, but we will watch, and if those storm chances start to build in, it looks like it could be some stormy weather. We'll certainly let you know as we get closer to Monday. But for now, I would just plan on some wet weather, showers late Sunday and showers scattered on Monday, and then cooler weather coming in after that, Tuesday into Wednesday. So that's a look at the 7-day forecast. Let me remind you, you can always stay up on the forecast when you download our 13 News Now mobile app. That mobile app, a great way to access the radars, our forecast, special weather coverage, everything you need to know about the weather, not only in Hampton Roads, but across our region. Our team of meteorologists work to bring you more on that. You can also check out our newscast when you use our mobile app. Check out the streaming of our newscast. And that, later today at noon, will feature Taylor Stephenson. And Taylor, that story you were doing on the pollen bombs,
yes,
that's going to air later on tonight as well.
It will. So
good information.
Yeah, it is, especially as that's one of the main things we're really worried about this season is the pollen levels being so high. Virginia Beach ranks the second highest pollen city, or the worst for pollen sufferers in Virginia, and 11th nationally. So we have a lot of pollen to deal with here in the Mid-Atlantic.
Beautiful place to live, but we do have our tree pollen. I noticed that when I first came back here in 1997, I moved from Salt Lake, where we had very little tree pollen to worry about, at least where we were in the valley. And when I came in here, it's like, oh, the trees are beautiful.
Right.
And I developed allergies. So.
Well, my thing was, I'm from Georgia, and we have really high tree pollen, but I was just talking to our news director, and I think the type of tree is what's getting me here.
Okay.
Usually it's oak there, sycamore, mainly the ones in Georgia. I think those cedar trees are getting me this year.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot of it here, and we'll continue to keep an eye on all of that. You can check back with us again each and every weekday at 9 a.m. right here on the 13 News Now Plus app, and we'll keep you covered from the Weather Desk. Have a great day.